Dozens of climbers are waiting for rescue at Mount Everest base camp after a deadly avalanche. 4 Americans are among the 18 people who died in that disaster. The earthquake triggered the avalanche that nearly wiped out the base camp. It also left more than 100 mountaineers stranded higher up the slopes of Mount Everest. Some eyewitnesses say this morning that all of them have been rescued.
Jim Davidson, a climber from Colorado, survived the avalanche. He is with us on the telephone now from Everest Base Camp. Good morning.
Good morning. This is Jim.
Jim, tell us and share with us what happened. What did you see?
Well, at the time of the earthquake, I was camped with my teammates at Camp 1, which is approximately 20,000 feet from the side of Mount Everest. We were resting in our tents, and we heard an incredibly loud roar off to our left, and we realized that an avalanche was on its way down. Quickly, I grabbed my avalanche beacon and put it on, and my hat and coat to stay warm. And before we could get out of the tent, all of a sudden the tent started vertically bouncing up and down like a life raft in the ocean. And we knew this was something extremely big. And by the time we got out of the tent, the roar of the first avalanche was getting closer. And then we heard an avalanche come from the opposite direction, also ripping down towards our tent. So we were quite scared with nowhere to run.
Jim, I've heard it described as a horror movie. Someone else who survived said it was not your typical avalanche and that it wasn't just snow cascading down. Is that true?
That's true. The sound of this was bigger than anything I'd ever heard. We couldn't see anything because we were in a cloud bank at the time, which made it even scarier. We just literally stood there waiting for one or the other avalanche to come get us. And fortunately, they ran out before they got to us by a couple hundred yards.
What do you know about a rescue plan?
Yesterday afternoon, the climbing teams and the Sherpa teams put together an incredible helicopter rescue. There were 140 people trapped up at Camp 1 where I was and Camp 2 combined. And they flew these special high-altitude helicopters up. It's so high that the helicopter has trouble flying, so it can only take 2 people and small baggage. There were no seat belts, there were no seats. We just sat on the floor of the helicopter, and they landed us at base camp. So flight by flight, after about 75 or 80 flights, they got all the people out of Camp 1 and Camp 2 yesterday.
What's it like there now?
Well, I'm at Everest Base Camp still at about 17,300 feet. We haven't had any aftershocks in probably about 36 hours, so we're very thankful for that. We're still pretty exposed here. The glacier is right next to us, and where the avalanche ripped through base camp a couple of days ago is just 100 meters from where I'm standing. So it's still kind of a very sober place. Almost everybody's had a traumatic experience, so there's sort of a lot of stares and PTSD feelings floating around. But the community's trying to pull together. We've already taken care of the injured and the fatalities, and so now we're just slowly disassembling base camp and figuring out how are we going to get out of the mountains, how are we going to get to Kathmandu, who can we help along the way, and there's a lot of uncertainty about how long it's going to take to get out of the country.
Well, Jim Davidson, it goes without saying, we're very glad you survived and could talk to us today. We wish you well. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thanks for having me on.